There exists a mental evolution so deep that the psychiatrist Carl Jung seemingly feared speaking of it publicly. A shift so monumental, he allegedly kept his observations concealed, extremely worried about the ramifications of what he'd uncovered. If you are an empath, if you have passed your whole existence as an emotional absorbent, taking in everyone else's hurt, shouldering their burdens, and handing out portions of yourself, you are probably nearing an edge most individuals do not even perceive. What I am going to reveal isn't your usual self-improvement discussion. It is about the instant an empath's limit finally shatters. This is not about establishing healthier borders or practicing refusal. This is about a shadow integration so total that it forms an individual who makes a typical narcissist appear like a novice. You recognize the sensation, correct? That profound in your marrow fatigue that no quantity of rest could ever fix. It is that climbing, stinging annoyance when your phone vibrates and you are certain it is that particular friend phoning with the identical emergency they had the previous week. Or perhaps it's that colleague who constantly unloads their tasks onto you because you are just so compassionate, and you discover yourself grinning while envisioning hurling your keyboard across the office. You have passed years serving as the emotional support for everybody else, and the bitterness is starting to grow. You have likely informed yourself you are just being pessimistic or unenlightened for this feeling. But Carl Jung perceived this is not a personal failing. It is the introduction to a drastic, essential shift. The majority of empaths never successfully navigate this change. The ones who manage, they come out as something different altogether. Here is the epiphany that Carl Jung focused on. You have not simply been taking in suffering for all this time. You have been gathering information. You have turned into, entirely by chance, an unintentional specialist in the human shadow. Consider it. Each controller who ever attempted to gaslight you over a due date was providing you a no-cost, direct lesson in the mechanics of gaslighting. Every energy vampire who exhausted you at a gathering showed precisely how to drain emotional energy. You have been attending a hands-on masterclass in harmful conduct, and the final test is starting. All that shadow you took in, all those deceptions, manipulations, and unkindnesses, they did not just disappear. They have been accumulating. They have been brewing. So, what occurs when the empath at last reaches the end of their rope? When you recognize your compassion is being handled like an unattended help-yourself buffet. This is the instant Carl Jung found so compelling. All of that ingested shadow, all that documented brutality, it does not just get vented in a yell. It integrates. It links to your aware mind. This is not a collapse. It's a re-equipping. It's a transformation. The individual who comes out of this is no longer just a passive mender. They are something vastly more intricate. This new combined strength is what Carl Jung labeled shadow empathy. Your former empathy was a passive receptor. You sensed someone's sorrow and automatically wished to console them. Shadow empathy is an active scanning tool. You still sense their sorrow, but you additionally perceive the exact vulnerability, the particular dread, or the ego-based drive that is creating it. You immediately know the exact words to mend them, and you also, terrifyingly, know the exact words that would completely tear them apart. You do not just perceive their suffering anymore. You perceive the fine fractures in their whole psychological defense. You have, essentially, advanced from a basic first aid kit to a complete surgical setup. You are able to execute sensitive, life-preserving procedures, but you also understand exactly where to exert pressure to create catastrophic collapse. This precisely is what makes this metamorphosis a narcissist's total darkest fear. Their whole approach, their entire existence, depends on leveraging your factory settings of compassion, guilt, and pardon. They are accustomed to playing chess against an opponent who only understands how to move the pawns. Now, they are abruptly confronting a grandmaster who understands every opening, every gambit, and can perceive 10 moves in advance. When they attempt to gaslight you, you can spot the maneuver from a mile off. It is like the Joker abruptly understanding Batman can read his thoughts. Their psychological tools are ineffective. They are confronting an individual who not only understands all their tactics, but can execute them superiorly. This leads us to the taboo caution Carl Jung was so worried over. Society, at some level, requires empaths to be pushovers. It depends on a constant flow of individuals who are prepared to take in collective toxicity, to serve as the emotional shock absorbers, and to mend dysfunction without insisting on accountability. A toxic workplace, for instance, only operates because a handful of kind-hearted individuals manage all the emotional burden for no cost. When empaths cease doing that, when they advance, the systems that depend on their exploitation are jeopardized. You are no longer a casualty. You are a power of psychological responsibility. If you sense this change starting inside you, that fresh lucidity, that abrupt shortage of patience, that strange resistance to old manipulations, understand this. You are not turning dark. You are not transforming into a monster. You are becoming whole. You are not shedding your empathy. You are acquiring the strength to shield it. This is not a fall from grace. It is a rise to a level of psychological integration most individuals never, ever attain. The query Carl Jung posed to us is not if you will shift. The query is what you will do with that strength when you at last cease taking in the world's shadow and begin utilizing it.